¿Están emocionados? Tengo que decirles a las personas que están aquí, tengo que decirles que son afortunados porque todo el mundo quería estar en este auditorio a esta hora para la presentación de George Rubinstein. Todas las personas en la conferencia anterior tuvimos que pedirles que desalojaran para que ustedes pudieran entrar. Y nos metimos así como en un problema porque nadie se quería ir. Obviamente todos querían estar aquí para esta plática. Entonces a los que están aquí, pues muchas gracias, muchas felicidades porque tienen este lugar. Y a los que no están, pues les mandamos un saludo por la transmisión de Facebook. También gracias por estarlo viendo. Sabemos que lo van a disfrutar igual. Y bueno, no hay mucho que decir. Yo creo que todos ustedes conocen del trabajo de George Rubinstein, incluso mucho mejor de lo que yo lo conozco. Lo que sí les tengo que decir es que esta conferencia va a ser en inglés, ¿ok? Si ustedes hablan inglés, van a poder entender esto perfectamente, sobre todo la parte de los chistes. Si no hablan inglés, tengan en cuenta que están viendo a George Rubinstein y que admiran su trabajo. Y cuando la gente se ría, ríanse ustedes también y nadie va a saber que no hablan inglés, ¿ok? De esa manera se va a sentir mucho mejor cuando todos se rían. Ok, bueno, ya lo conocen. George Rubinstein es creador, es dibujante, es artista, es creativo, trabaja para Marvel, pero también ha trabajado para todos los creadores de cómics en Estados Unidos, al menos para los más grandes. También me estaba platicando que también es actor, lo han podido ver en algunas series por ahí. Y pues viene a platicarnos un poco de lo que hace, de cómo lo hace, cómo ha llegado hasta donde está. Y vamos a tener también una serie de preguntas y respuestas en donde todo el mundo, o al menos algunos, van a poder preguntar. Así que les pido por favor que reciban con un muy muy fuerte aplauso a George Rubinstein.
Can you see me? Oh, cool. All right. Hola, thanks for coming. I usually don't get this big a turnout at a comic book convention, so I guess nothing's happening in the other rooms right now. When they told me that I was going to have this big an audience, I asked them to give me makeup and hair, and look what happened. Okay, so why am I here? Why would you care about anything I have to say? How am I going to affect your lives? What's the difference, right? What I did is I had a dream when I was a child, and I made it happen. You'd like to make your dreams happen too. So, I'm from Israel originally, and when I was 5 years old, we came over to the U.S. 2 parents and 3 little children, none of which spoke English, none of which had any skills. We wound up all being doctors and lawyers and surgeons and psychologists, and I draw little pictures for a living. So I'm like the black sheep of the family. All right. So I remember my father didn't want me to be an artist because he knew that artists were going to be poor the rest of their lives, and he just made sure that my rest of my brothers and sisters had money so they could take care of me when I got older. So one day I showed him a picture of my art, and I said, "What do you think?" He said, "I don't know from art." I said, "I got $500 for this." He said, "Oh, it's good." Okay, so here's the thing. Okay, so I came to this country when I was 5 years old, and my older cousin had some comic books. So since I couldn't speak the language, I looked at the pictures. I guess I fell in love with them. I started to draw my own little pictures with crayon and lined paper like all little kids do. But I wanted to continue. This was the thing that made me happy. So I started to go to the Art Students League of New York, which is where I lived. My parents used to put me on the subway to go into Manhattan when I was 11 years old. To which I want to ask them, what the hell were you thinking? You know, it's like maybe they figured if he doesn't come back, we still have 2 more. So I studied art when I was 11 years old, and then when I was 13 years old, I went to my first comic book convention, which my father brought me to, which was amazing, because my father didn't approve of comic books. And I met a man named Neil Adams, who was my hero at the time, and he was starting a new studio. And I asked him, could I be the errand boy? Could I be the one that makes the coffee and sweeps the floors? And amazingly enough, he said yes. And so I started to work there after school and summers. And then when I was 15 years old, I started to do assistant work on the comic book pages. And then I was 17 years old, I got my first job. The first day I looked for work, I got 3 jobs. And my goal was done. I wanted to be a working comic book artist, and I became a working comic book artist. So here's the secret. Keep having new goals. Keep making something else you want to do, something greater, something bigger. I'm a portrait painter, oil paints and watercolors and all that sort of stuff. Lucky for me, that takes the rest of my life. Because to be good at that, you have to practice for 30 or 40 or 50 years. So, for all of you who want to be artists, or even writers, actors, filmmakers, look at the past. See what's been done before. Don't reinvent the wheel. And I suggest, at least the method I went, is find a mentor, be an apprentice, go somewhere and learn the business that you want to do. When I started to do my work, my mentor, a guy named Dick Giordano, who was a great, wonderful, kind man, would stop everything and show me what to do. And then I got better, and I brought my work to DC Comics, and they looked at my stuff, and they said, okay, we'll give you a job if Dick promises to watch you. And so I did the work, I brought it to Dick, he looked at it and went, yeah, it's good. And that was it. I had my job, you know. But I'll tell you something. Your first job is not the hardest one to get. It's your second job. Because if what you did the first time is good enough, you're not going to get another one. So besides having to be good at what you do, I used to come home and start to work. And I'd work for 20 minutes. And then I'd watch TV for 3 hours. And then I'd come back and I'd work for another 10 minutes. I'd work for 3 hours. And then I'd watch TV for 4 hours. And then, you know, there are people waiting for you. There are deadlines. There are commitments. There are people who want to see what you've done. So besides being able to do what you do, you have to be professional about it. You have to be disciplined about it and get to work and know that there are people relying upon you, not the least of which, if you get to the point where you have a family, is your family, you know. Now, I know that there's a lot of technical people here and a lot of different pursuits. But let me tell you something. If you're doing anything to make a lot of money, stop. Because money doesn't bring happiness, believe it or not. It lets you have instead of eating at McDonald's, you can eat at a better restaurant. Instead of going on a little vacation, you can go on a big vacation. Money gives you choices. But what it doesn't do is give you happiness. So if you find the thing that you love, the passion, the thing that makes you happy to do it, the thing that you're going to do for the rest of your life or for the next 10 years or 5 years or 6 months, do the thing that makes you happy, and when you go there, you will be much happier working. And you'll do it better, and money will come. There's a book called Find What You Love and the Money Will Come. There's nothing better. I've never had a real job. From the age of 13 on, this is all I've ever done. And I can't imagine doing something else. And if somebody paid me a great deal of money, I'd do something else. But I would be really miserable doing it. You know, that's what it's all about, to just find your place in life and produce what you have to produce. Now, they were asking me to talk about creativity. And I don't know what that means. If you take a dog and paint him blue, is that creative? I don't know, except there's a man in the United States who's made millions of dollars painting paintings of blue dogs. And if you take a dog and you dress him in a suit and you take a photograph of him, is that creative? I don't know. But there's a guy in the United States who's making millions of dollars putting out books of dogs dressed in suits. So the thing about creativity is when you get a good idea and you tell somebody about it, the likelihood is they're all going to tell you it's a bad idea because they didn't come up with it and nobody did it before. And who do you think that you are that you can come up with something nobody's ever done in the history of man? And then you invent the pet rock and you make millions of dollars. You know, it's so I think people, am I out of the light when I stand here? I should stay here? Okay. I think we all have good ideas. We all might have million-dollar ideas at some point in our lives. But the difference is that Bill Gates kept going and saying, I want to do this, and I don't care who's going to tell me I'm this dumb kid who doesn't know what he's doing. And a lot of us have other people who just say, why do you think that way? Who would want that thing? And then they go, I guess you're right, and I'm going to stop now. Thomas Edison, y'all know who he is, right? Okay. Thomas Edison would sit in a chair, and he would go into sort of a trance, and he would hold two balls in his hands, and underneath his hands were these metal pie plates, and he would get to a place where he would be in a trance. And then if he fell asleep, the balls fell out of his hands and woke him up. And he would remember what it was in his head when everything else was gone. When all the self-doubt was gone, when all the questioning was gone, with all the other people's thoughts were gone. It's like, what amazing ideas came into his head when he cleared it. So there's something to be said for finding your place where you can just listen to the quiet. Just find out what's being said to you when you're not talking to yourself. All right? And creativity to me is problem solving. Somebody gives you this problem and you don't know what to do with it, and they don't know what to do with it, and you go, all right, I have to do something nobody else has done. What do I have around me? Like when I'm doing my art, you know Stan Lee, the guy who made Marvel Comics and Spider-Man and all that. So I bought these new acrylic colors I'd never tried before, and I woke up at 4 a.m. in the morning for no good reason. And I couldn't go back to sleep. I said, okay, I'll go paint a picture of Stan Lee. Because that's the cool thing about being an artist. You don't need an audience. You know, you don't need anybody to okay you. You just sit down and draw. Because you know what? For those of you who are artists, or musicians, or writers, the reason you started what you did is because it was fun. Because it was magic. Because it gave you joy. Because after you worked on this drawing for a while, you went, oh, look, I've made something. I have something. One of the great things about being an artist is, at the end of the day, you have something. You're not an insurance salesman, or you're not a cop or something, where you go home and it's like you've made something you can show people and be proud of. So I sat down to do this Stan Lee painting, and I needed a big brush because I wanted to do something bold. And I went into my box of brushes, and this palette knife fell out. And what that is, it looks like a little trowel, a little butter knife, something like that. And it fell out of my box, and I went, oh, God wants me to use a palette knife today. I picked it up, and I painted the picture with the palette knife, and it's one of the best things I ever did, and Stan Lee bought it for his museum. Maybe he would have bought it if I had just used a brush, but I used what was presented to me. And if somebody gives you a problem and they say, all right, you only have these two things, what can you do with them? Be creative. Solve a problem. I don't think when Steve Jobs was making the iPhone or anything else he made, he said, I think I'm going to be creative today. He said, what looks good? What works? What's going to make me happy and make other people happy? Because you know what? Don't make other people happy. Make yourself happy and see who comes and appreciates you. Because if you keep thinking about all the other people in your life, she disagrees with him and he disagrees with her, and who am I going to try and make happy today? Just make yourself happy. There was a time in comic books where they were selling 42 million copies a month. And the next month, they were selling 7. And nobody knew what happened, but the industry was in a panic, and people were losing their jobs, and they didn't know what they were going to do. And I lost my job. And I didn't have a job for a long time. And I had to be creative. Where do I go? What can I do that the other person can't do? How do I use my skills and strengths to still make a living? And I started to do other things, and portraits of dogs and birthday parties and greeting cards and all that sort of stuff. And the thing that I want you to think about is the thing that you should invest in most in your life is you. You put the hours in, you put the study in, and it will pay off at the other end. Now, I spent the majority of my life in a room alone doing my work. And it's a cool job. It's great. It's better than working for a living. I get to draw Spider-Man and Captain America and the Hulk and Wolverine and all that's wonderful. But then the industry went away and nobody was hiring me to do it. And what happens? I get brought to Juarez, Mexico to talk in front of people. And I get, and I said, all right, I've put in the hours, so now I have a certain celebrity in my industry. Some people want to meet me, people want to have my autograph, people want to get a drawing from me. Last year, I went to Hawaii twice, Kuwait, Birmingham, England, Paris, London, most of America, and boy am I tired. But it's better than working for a living. And the reason it happened is because I put in all the hours to get noticed, to do the work. So I hope you're having fun while you're working, but realize that it's for the good of all, It's like when I did my comic art, it was selfish. I did it because I want to make a living, because I want to work, have food, because I don't want to work at McDonald's. It was purely selfish. I wanted to make myself happy by doing art every day. But people come up to me at comic book conventions and say, thank you, you're my hero. My brother gave me your comic book when I was a kid. It made me fall in love with reading. A guy recently said to me, my hand was crushed in an accident, and I spent the next 2 years copying your drawings to learn how to use my hand again. That makes a person feel great. Do it for yourself, but realize that the benefits of what you do go out. Even if you think you're just making something for yourself. Like I said, I don't think Steve Jobs wanted to improve the world. He kind of wanted to make his art, and the world will come from it, right? Now, I also, when I was a kid, I knew the people who invented Superman, Siegel and Schuster. And I knew Jack Kirby, and I knew Stan Lee. I still know Stan Lee. Stan Lee is a very cool guy. And he's much cooler when he's not at a comic book convention, when you're just having dinner with him, right? But I'll tell you the first time I met Stan. I'm 19 years old, and I'm working at Marvel's offices. I think because it was summer and it was hot and they had air conditioning, right? And I'm just sitting in a room, and all of a sudden, Stan Lee bursts in the room. I go, and I'm impressed, like all of you would be. Oh my God, it's Stan Lee. And he's got this painting he wants to look at. And there's more light in my room. So Stan puts the painting down on the floor to look at it. And when he does it, he puts his elbow right into my ink. And I think, my career is over. It was nice. It's like 2 years. It was a good time, but I've just put ink all over Stan Lee, and I'm going, all right, do I say nothing? And then later he sees it and says, hey, Or do I say something now and get fired? And I go, Mr. Lee, you put your elbow in my ink. Anyway, it happens all the time. That was great. So, you know something? If you have heroes, be careful. They might not be everything you think they are. They may be great at one thing, but may not. But you know, I think it's like any human being. It's like, what's the positive parts of this person? What can I learn from? And maybe I shouldn't follow the other parts of him. So, you know, I was the young guy in comic books when everybody else was 23, 28, 40, 50. I was 17. And I didn't know it, but I went back to my high school reunion like 20 years later, and these guys came up to me and said, you know, you were our hero. I said, me? Why? And they said, because you were working as soon as you got out of school. Okay. And they said, you were the cool guy. I go, no, you got me mixed up with somebody else. I was never cool. And they went, no, you were cool. I went, I wish somebody had said something then. I probably would feel much better about myself, you know? So this is to say, when I was a kid and I knew all those old guys, they were old, like to my eyes, probably they're all younger than I am now. Stan is 94 years old. Stan's great. Stan's still going. Nearly everybody else is gone from my childhood. It's all my contemporaries. And you know, the lesson to be learned there is say it now. Whatever it is you need to say now, whatever it is you want to appreciate about a person now, tell it to them now. And there was a big meeting of all the living Superman artists from like 1938 to 1980, and they all got together, and there were a bunch of old guys, and I didn't say a word to any of them. And I wish I had said a word to every one of them. And I wish I'd come up and says, tell me about yourself. Tell me what you did and who you are and how you got here. Because, you know, there's a lot of wisdom out there in your families. There's a lot of wisdom. There's stories that your parents haven't told you that you probably should know. There's stories your grandparents haven't told you. And there's also old artists who maybe you think, well, they're old and they don't know about computers and they don't know about digital and all that stuff. And you might want to think, but what do they know about and what could they teach me and what can you learn? So right now, you're in places in your life where everything you need to know is like pebbles on the ground. You can just keep picking them up. Somebody wants to tell you something. Somebody wants to give you the knowledge that they had, that they're dying to pass on to the next person. When Steve Jobs and Wozniak were in, where were they, like Oakland? They kept going to all these different guys and saying, we want to learn what you know. And the guys went, okay, you know, I'm retired. I've got nothing else to do with my day. And those guys taught Wozniak and Gates how to be who they are and change the world completely. You know, if you look at the world, 1980 doesn't look like 1960, and 1960 doesn't look like 1940. Every 20 years, the world seems to be a completely different place. And who's to say that you guys aren't the reason it's going to be a completely different, better place in 2040 or 2030, you know? I think the secret is enjoy what you're doing. Just have a passion for it, love it, and put the hours in, right? Where's my moderator? Where'd you go? Is he here anywhere? How much time do I have? ¿10 more minutes? All right, well, why don't you start taking questions then?
Muy bien, bueno, vamos a pasar al momento de las preguntas y las respuestas, así que, ¿cómo le hacemos? Va a haber un montón de preguntas, ¿no? El primero que levante la mano, fácil. Ok. Grítala y aquí le preguntamos. O si sabes inglés, mejor.
What would you say to someone that has give up on art because of their parents? Like their parents don't want them to study art and stuff, so they have already like given up.
I thought we had
The question was, what do you do when you've given up on art because your parents don't approve of art? Do it when they're not looking. Okay? Because my parents didn't approve of comic books. And you know, they wouldn't give me an allowance. They just gave me money when I wanted something. You know, says, can I have a quarter? It says, for what? It says, comic books. No, you can't have comic books. So I did the only thing a person should do. I stole from them. Okay? Because they wouldn't give me my comic books. All right? So, and you know, ultimately they benefited because I gave them the money back years later. But look, you love it. It makes you happy. Maybe, right? I mean, look, my father, I had been working in comic books for 2 years. I got my first check and I showed it to him. See, I'm a real artist. And he shook my hand, which was great. Like, okay, you did it. And then he said, my father was an electrician. He worked on the World Trade Center. And he said, listen, why don't you save up for a year and you can go to Paris and study art and then you can come back. But for the year, you can work as an electrician. And I said, no way, because I know I'm going to be too terrified to start art again if I spend a year away from it, right? I don't know if your parents disapprove of it because they're afraid you're not going to make any money at it. But maybe if you come to them with simply the statement, it makes me happy. Do you want me to be happy? You know, and my father paid for all my art lessons and then tried to stop me from being an artist at the same time, which was very confusing. But he loved me, he loved all of his children, so he wanted to give his children the best of what he could do. So he was going to give me the art lessons and try and get me to have a real job. And my father, being an electrician, he didn't understand not having a building at the end of the day or, you know, a light that turned on. So he didn't understand the passion. But if you can somehow get your parents to understand this is what makes you happy and the passion that they might have had for something else. And, you know, by the way, there's a million tutorials on the internet. There's a million lessons on art. You can get on your computer and sneak an hour, you know. And maybe once they see it and they see that it makes you happier, they'll let you have more time. I hope that works. You're welcome. Anything else?
Muy bien. Siguiente. Por aquí, por allá. Tenemos un montón.
Oh, good. A second microphone.
Sí, ya tenemos micro.
We've gone professional.
¿Cuál es tu, what is the most difficult time of your entire career and how can you get through?
The most difficult time of my career and life, because they're kind of interwoven, is in 1999 when comic books stopped selling, I stopped getting work. And I became so poor that I either had to decide on money or heat. And I lived with no heat in New York City for 2 winters. But I had some food. And I would call up people looking for work and they would go, "You're looking for work?" I go, "Yeah." It says, "I can't believe it." It says, "You got anything?" It says, "Oh, no, but I can't believe you're looking for work." Thanks. And you know what? You have the world's biggest flea market in your house. You have the internet. And you start reaching out and go, you know, look, I'm an actor too, God help me, right? And actors have to figure out what to do to make money while they're looking to be an actor. So some people, they teach after-school art classes to little kids for childcare. Some people, you know, clean houses. Some people do car washes. Some people become assistants. You figure out what you can do that they can't do. And the thing is, if you let people know that you have a skill, they'll go, oh, I could use you. I didn't know you could do that. All right? So I started to tell the world, by the way, I'm still around. I can draw Spider-Man for you. You can? Oh, I'd like a Spider-Man drawing. Okay. So the thing is, you make 1,000 phone calls, you get 100 replies, and you get 10 jobs. But you got 10 jobs. So you put in the work. You just decide, today my job is to get a job. And you do it like anything else. You sit down at 8 a.m. and you start looking for work. And like I said, luckily for me, conventions are all over the world now. So because I have the Wolverine as my guy, I get employment that way. And if conventions went away tomorrow, then I'd start doing portraits of dogs. There's nothing wrong with that either. Okay. Favorite character? Oddly enough, I like Wolverine. And I also, well, to draw. And my favorite character to draw is the Hulk because he's naked. Okay. No details, no Iron Man, no discs, no helmets, no capes. He's naked with pants. Perfect. Go there.
Got another question?
I also like, by the way, I think Spider-Man is the perfect character because we young, sensitive kids who were reading Spider-Man read about a young, sensitive kid who wasn't the most popular guy, was pretty smart, and said, if I get powers, everybody's going to like me. And he didn't realize that he was a screw-up and everybody was going to still hate him. But, and so when I was a kid, and I was sitting in my room drawing and drawing and drawing and drawing, I kept saying, if I become a good enough artist, everybody's going to like me and I'm going to be so popular and people are going to, And you know what? Art wasn't invented for that. It was, you don't say, now that I can draw Spider-Man well, he's going to like me. Well, he's not going to like you. But do it because you want to do it. Do it because, Star Wars, the Force, right? Okay. How do you get to the Force? You play a musical instrument, and at that moment, you are with everything. You paint a painting, and it's going right. And at that moment, you are with the Force. You are riding a motorcycle, and you are perfect as you go around wherever you're going, and the world doesn't exist, and at that moment, you are with the Force. So, the past has regrets. The future has anxiety. Maybe it has hope. But sometimes it's anxiety in the future, regrets in the past. So today is good. Today is now. That's what you want to, that's the PowerPoint. So when you draw something or you play something or you write code for a computer and it's going right, you go, this is where I need to be. That's what makes you happy, I think. What's my inspiration to create a new drawing? Well, okay, let me explain you something. Okay, I'm an inker. When comic books was invented, it had to be an assembly line process like cars, right? So one person draws with a pencil, one person inks, one person letters, one person colors, one person letters. It can be done by one person, but there's so much work to do. 22 pages in 3 weeks is a lot of work. So they broke it down to the assembly line process. So I'm the guy who puts the ink over somebody else's drawing, right? Okay. So I'm a tracer, right? That's all I do is I trace, right? But here's the thing. A musician, a composer, gets a blank piece of paper in front of him. What am I going to do? And he creates something out of nothing. But then he hands it to the musician and says, take care of my baby. Well, if I've got a drawing, somebody handed to me and said, take care of my baby, as a musician, am I going to use a piano or guitar? Because that's going to change it completely. So they'll use a pen or a brush, Okay, so I've decided I'm going to use a guitar. Great. He says, but am I going to do it flamenco, jazz, pop, classical? So even though I'm doing the exact same notes in the exact same order, I'm giving it a personal interpretation. So I'm the inker who takes your drawings and gives it my personal interpretation of what you wanted done. So I can either completely ruin it, not care what you wanted, or try and help it along. So my inspiration when I'm the inker is look at that beautiful drawing they gave me. I have to return it beautiful. I have to make it what that man wanted it to be. So I feel an obligation to that artist, I feel an obligation to myself, and I feel an obligation to the audience. When I do my own art, I do Skype lessons. And when I get a new student, I say, congratulations, you now have a passion that should occupy you the rest of your life. And I'm sorry to tell you, you're going to be miserable forever. Because today I used all blues, and then I go, maybe I should have used all reds. And tomorrow I use a palette knife, and I go, maybe I should use the brush. And that's not bad, but he's better, and I'll never be as good as that guy. And, oh, look, that guy's younger than I am, but he got better than me so fast. And it's like, do it for your sake. Do it for you. A teacher told me something once. He said, picture your favorite artist of all time. And now you know you're never going to be as good as that artist, right? He says, okay. He had a favorite artist of all time that he knew he'd never be as good as. But he still had to do the work because he had to do the work, because it was passion, because it was the thing that made him happy, because it was the thing that brought him to the force. You can think about other people, but you do it ultimately for yourself. The only reason, again, you want somebody to pay you for it is so you don't have to work at McDonald's later.
Tenemos otra preguntita acá atrás.
Hello. My friend wants to ask you if you are known as illustrator for Wolverine. He wants to know if you have made other drawings, your favorite, and...
Have I met other drawings?
Yeah. He asked...
I've made a few other drawings.
Few other drawings. And with...
Which?
I
have the Guinness World's Record for more characters and more collaborations than anybody in history, if it existed, which it doesn't. Okay.
And also...
Thanks, it only took 42 years. And look, say to me, draw Spider-Man. I'll draw Spider-Man. Say to me, draw Archie. I'll draw Archie. It's fun. I do it because I love to do it, and I've been doing it forever, and I don't do anything else. Except I love people. I love people over plants, and I love people over trees, and I love people over rocks. So I could draw people's faces all day long the rest of my life and still be happy. And the thing is I want to get your face, not your cousin's face. And I want to get your face, not your mother's face. I want to find the person you are. And the difference between photography and art, and I know there's a lot of controversy in photography's art, and yeah, bullshit. Anyway, the difference is that I want you to know how I felt about that woman when I drew her. Was she my lover? Was she my mother? Was she my school teacher that I loved as my school teacher? Did she symbolize, like if I do a painting of a woman nude, is it a sexual painting or is it about all women? Is it about women who give birth to babies and she's holding a child? So when you look at a piece of art, you should feel something and have some sense of what it is I felt the need to make this into the world. Because there's something very arrogant about me saying, I think this is very interesting. I'm going to spend the next 5 hours or 5 days making this piece of art. And when it's all done, I hope you'll find it interesting too. But you don't do it because you think they're going to find it interesting. You do it because you have the feelings first. So yes, I've drawn everybody. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, so maybe we're gonna have to
All right. Okay. All right, they're pulling the plug. Thank you for coming. All right, bye-bye.
Le damos las gracias, ya se quiere bajar rápido, así que bueno, pues un aplauso por favor fuerte para Joe Rubinstein.